love real? Don't know how to feel. I've been waiting on you, babe. I've been waiting on you, babe. Give me something. Don't know how to win. I've been waiting on you, babe. Yeah, on you, babe. Come on.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening on No Dumb Questions. I'm your host, Dr. Steve Perry. And tonight, it's a really special night for me because I get to speak with a brother I've known for over a decade. And our conversations have run the gamut of career and life and marriage and hopes and dreams. And he's a person who's constantly pushed me to rethink, or even in his words, rebrand who I am. And I thought it would be helpful for us to have a conversation with this individual because so many of you are trying to figure out what it is you're going to do or be. And we've just come out of the new year, or just entered into new year. And a lot of you are at a point where you are making sense of your New Year's resolutions. And you don't know exactly what it is you want to do or be. You may think that your do or be is going to be defined by a single career. But after hearing from our guest, you're going to see that who you are is evolving, and what you will become is still unknown. But because we're here on No Dumb Questions, we're going to ask the questions. And so please join me in welcoming my main man, Brother Rushion McDonald.
Thank you. Thank you. How you doing, my friend? I'm in the basement in Atlanta. I'm in the basement.
I don't think you're in the basement. Nobody's basements look like that.
I'm the mad scientist, Dr. Steve here. I'm the mad scientist.
But where are you? So tell me where you are right now.
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I purchased a 3-story building to carry out all my dreams. You know, I was in spaces and had all these offices right before COVID, and I feel I didn't have control of my narrative. And so I sat down with my wife and I said, look, I want to buy a building. And she said, okay, I know about a house, I know about a car, but a building, Rushion. I said, yeah, that's something I never said before in my life either. So I'm gonna do it. And that's the purpose of rebranding myself. I've been with superstar talent, worked in superstar studios and top Fortune 500 companies. But this is the first time I really, in the last couple of years, looked at Rushion McDonald's brand and started pushing the narrative of success that I've used on so many people in the past.
We want to start there because you and I met through a mutual friend of ours, and it really in what were some inauspicious circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
It was hot as F.
In Dallas.
I don't know how anyone, Dallas, love y'all. I don't get it. I don't get it. It was very, very hot. And we were at Steve Harvey's mentoring camp.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you and I just sat down and started talking about what it is that you do, and frankly, your story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a lot of people know your story, and I would like you to talk about why it is that you're just now. Good black don't crack, and you clearly are only in your 30s. But for the rest of the people, why is it that just now you're starting to focus on you?
Because that's what we do in life. You know, we've been told to go to high school, been told it's a good idea to go to college. We've been told that you should find someone and fall in love with them and have children. Our whole life we've been told. And so what happens is I'm always blessed when I see people who get it at a very young age. Like President Barack Obama got it because he knew he had to do certain things in his life to be able to run for the president of the United States. You know, I look at people like Deion Sanders. He got it. He knew about branding and marketing when he was in high school and became that prime time to Deion later on. These are just a couple of examples. And what happens is the average person doesn't get it. And I've divided life into 3 specific ages: 18, 40, and 60. Because at the age of 18, we come out of high school, we finally start making our own individual decisions. And a lot of us, like me, was to go to college. I went to college. I had the tiger by the tail. I wanted to do everything. And usually by 22, either you're going to graduate from college or you really start slowing down, because that's been a total number that you're supposed to be doing something. You should have a focus upon your life. And so, but also you're driven by what people have told you you're supposed to do. So that 18 to 22, really, that's when you have your dreams. That's your honest life period, I feel. Because I always tell people that's the period where you say, I can conquer the world. But when you get to 40, if you've not accomplished the things you did in your 18 to 22, you consider yourself a failure. You might not be married. You might not be married to the person you want to be. You might have children that you
Yeah,
don't
but
feel.
nobody will look at you up to 40 and call you a failure.
But I'm not saying, me. But you asked me to come on the show to help out other people. Because
yeah, but I want to talk about you though.
Okay, cool. But I'm about to say that. But at 41 is when I honestly looked at my life and said, you know something, because I'm just telling you, Dr. Steve Perry, up to that point, I was using phrases like right place, right time. I'm just lucky. People just like me. You know, I was using all those phrases, but not being honest and looking at my body of work and taking that on. So 41 years of age. And Steve Harvey and I became partners in radio. And so from that 41 all the way up to 2016, I became the person that I am today because I honestly trusted myself. For the first time in my life, at 41, I trusted myself. I don't care how many cars I had. I don't care how many TV shows I did. I don't care how many concerts I sold out. I never trusted myself. And so when you say, Rushion, your body at work, no, I didn't trust it. I didn't believe in it. And at 41, I said, you know, so Rushion, stop using terms like luck. Stop using terms like, you know, right place, right time. I'm blessed. All those terms are tied to hard work and consistent behavior. And that's what happened to me. And so many people ride that same narrative that I just spoke of, instead of looking in the mirror and going to having an honest conversation like, how did you get here? Can somebody else have gotten here doing the things you did? And I said, no. So stop whining and ride the train to success and continue the hard work. And that's what I did at the age of 41.
You decided at the age of 41 to trust in yourself.
Yes.
That meant a pivot.
Yes.
What you had been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about some of the things you had been doing,
yes,
so that people could understand just the gravity of the pivot for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing at the time was, you know, if you look at my life, I graduated from college with a math degree.
Where'd you go to school?
University of Houston, minor in sociology. And then I went to college with Akeem Olajuwon, all of them. They were my boys in college. Akeem, Clyde Drexler, those were my boys, okay? And so, but I decided instead of pursuing a long-term career at IBM, I wanted to do stand-up comedy. So I quit a job, at a very successful job at IBM, to go on the road and follow my dreams. And at the age of 28.
What's that conversation sound like when you call home and you say?
I would tell you this, the year before, Dr. Perry, when I quit, I cried. Because I was making a decision that I was uncomfortable with, but I knew that was the right decision for me. And I knew I would disappoint a lot of people because that's not what they saw in me. Oh, you were funny on stage, but wow, Rushion works for IBM. Rushion McDonald's always making the right decision. I come from a family, man, from the neighborhood. We grew up in a 2-bedroom shotgun house, 6 sisters, 2 brothers. My father was a truck driver, 3rd grade education. My mom graduated from high school. This is the family I came from. And so I was the success story, the first one to graduate from college. Then I'm going to throw it all away in their eyes to tell jokes. And I couldn't even tell them how I was going to make money. Because all I knew, I was just going to follow my heart, follow my dreams. And that's what I did. And a lot of people are still misguided in that whole approach to us. Like I said, you're guided by other people's decisions a lot. You might be guided by the people you go to church with. You might be guided by your kids. I was guided in that direction. And so I went on the road, did stand-up comedy. And then in 1990, my lung collapsed. And I was in the hospital for 30 days. And that was another major pivot in my life because of the fact that I knew right then I didn't have physical control of my life anymore. Because when you're young, you can kind of will yourself to health. If I had a flu, I just go play basketball, sweat it out of me, just sweat it out of me. 30 days in the hospital, I went, wow. And that 30-day period allowed me to realize that there's a short opportunity to be successful. If you're going to be successful, take advantage of it. And that's what I did from that whole run of being in the hospital till I was 41 years old. I was just sprinting. I was sprinting to be successful. When I say sprinting, I opened my own comedy club. I had the biggest comedy club in the country called Hip Hop Comedy Shop in 92. Steve Harvey asked me to write his television show, ABC, Me and the Boys, in 1994. 1985, I wrote for Robert Townsend's Parenthood. 1986, Arsenio Hall called me, asked me to do his ABC sitcom. Right after that, I got a call to do the Sister sitcom with starring Tia and Tamara Mowry. Right after that, I got a call from Jamie Foxx to be able to do co-executive produce his television series called the Jamie Foxx series on WB. And right after that, got a call from Monique to do her show, the sitcom, The Parkers. And then right after that, Steve Harvey asked me to manage his career in 1999. That changed my whole life right there. That call right there.
Why do you think he called you?
He called me because our good friend, he died. His name was Juan Hull. And Steve didn't trust anybody but me. He felt that I had a different look on everything. And I always told Steve that I always felt that that the world was selling him short. I felt he could make more than just black people laugh. I just always tell Steve, you can make everybody laugh. You are going to cross over. You're going to be a star. And so in 2000, we sat down and no paperwork, handshake. You my boy, he's his boy. We're gonna go do this. And we did the Kings of Comedy together, the movie. We did a contract in LA at 92.3 The Beat, which was his radio deal. He had already done radio. And I told him, hey, man, let's do this radio deal. That way we don't have to worry about checks. And what happened was at that same time, Bernie Mac was blowing up because he was the headline of the Kings of Comedy movie. At the same time, Cedric Entertainer was doing all those Super Bowl movies, the commercials, blowing up. #1 Super Bowl commercial. D.L. Hughley was everywhere. Steve Harvey was just doing radio. But what people didn't realize, the plan was to control the media. Have a voice that you can say, buy this, I'm on this, shop for this. That was the message that we created way back in 2000. It's become the anchor of why he's still so popular and successful today and on native markets around this country. Because when we syndicated in 2005, we were only on 4. And when I left in 2016, we were on 84.
What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the fact that, I really, I'm a mentor. I realized how many people I've impacted in conversation, Dr. Perry. When I say that, it's like I'm gonna tell you, if you're gonna sit down in front of me, don't ask me a question, because I'm gonna tell you.
He is telling you the truth.
I will tell you.
Absolutely, there's no doubt.
I will tell you. I've had the conversation with Nick Cannon. I've had the conversation with Lala Anthony. I've had the conversation with Stephen A. Smith. I've had the conversation with Steve Harvey. I've had the conversation with so many stars who have come back and say, I see now, or so many employees who say, I see now. Because all I want you to be is great. And I see you from a different perspective, because I see things 6 months to a year in advance. The average person sees things 30 days, at the most 90 days. But if you see things 6 months to a year in advance, then you get a clear understanding of how you have to make money and what people can think of you. Right now, this interview, my mind is in October. I am living the life of October.
What's in October?
October is television shows. October is I'm going to already know that I'm syndicating. I already got this thing I'm doing for Nissan. I'm building it out now. That I'm doing for them. I already know I'm doing HBCU college days right now, already building that out. All this stuff is being scheduled now for Black excellence, because I'm thinking that far in advance. You cannot be rich. You cannot make an economic term in life if you're thinking month to month. You can only invest in money and invest in yourself if you're thinking long term.
What do you think people miss when they're planning their approach to their career? What do you think people often miss?
I would tell you what they miss, Dr. Perry, is this. One is that we are the last to get the information. And I'm going to point it out to you. We are meaning minorities, people of color. We're the last. We're the purpose. We're the people that hear the word scam. We're the people who don't worry about the word scam because they got protection. And I say that when the words cryptocurrency, bitcoins, NFTs. When I people don't even know. Black people don't even know they're only making 21 million bitcoins. In every 4 years, they take a percentage off the market. See, and we're not even participating in cryptocurrency. We're not even participating. And so what happens is with minorities or people of color, because we're not educated to understand the value of success. Do you know there were more billionaires and millionaires created in the pandemic year of 2020 than in the history of the United States or the world? Because while there were over 4 million people unemployed, the stock market was setting records because that group of people know, and the people who are unemployed don't know. We have to get out of the don't know lane into the know lane. And the only way you're going to do that is educate yourself and be willing to take risk. When I use the word risk, that means going places that you're uncomfortable with going.
Where are you going that you're uncomfortable going?
Where I'm going with my uncomfortableness is this. I wake up in the morning at 4:30 every day. I don't want to get up. I don't hit the snooze button. I go to sleep with a plan to get up. And so my uncomfortableness is really diminished because I have a plan attached to it. My uncomfortableness was changed at 41 years of age when I realized that everything I was doing in my life was based on my ability to outthink my competition and compete with my competition. So the average person is uncomfortable because of the fact that should I be in a relationship or not in a relationship? If you are making that decision and you're unsure, then you should get out of that relationship. Should I stay at this job or should I leave that job? If you're thinking that way, leave that job. There's so many people going to work every day unhappy. And so guess what? Their work level at their job is unhappy work. So get out of that environment, which means that you're going to be afraid because you don't know if you get that option someplace else, but you have to challenge yourself. So I challenge myself every day. And my challenge to myself every day is that I am the best at what I do. I've started something I call bragging. I've encouraged people to brag nowadays, Dr. Steve. And the reason I say that is that on my show, I have a show called Money Making Conversation Masterclass. I encourage people to publicly promote the success of themselves, their children, their accomplishments at their work, the product that they're selling, and the business that they own. Because major corporations brag all the time. It's called McDonald's. It's called Ford. It's called Chrysler. It's called Mercedes-Benz. It's called Apple. It's called Google. That's what bragging is. We have to take that same attitude to our personal lives, and it will reduce the fear of success not coming your way.
When a person sees you, depending upon when they met you,
Yes.
I think they'd see a different person. Um, you talked about the different phases of your life.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the definition as it seems to change from phase to phase?
Well, I would tell you this about me is that like it was some good friends of mine. They came by my office today to say, "Wow, Rushion, you lost a lot of weight." And I was saying my heyday, I got up to maybe 230 pounds. I weighed 193. And it was like a couple of years ago, Morris Chestnut had a book out and he was coming on my show. And I said, you know something, I'm gonna do it. It was a diet book, it was a fitness book.
Yeah.
And I lost 17 pounds
Okay.
on his fitness book. And it changed my perspective on I realized I wasn't even taking care of myself. I realized I wasn't even putting the energy to make my life right. I was carrying around weight that didn't make my life better. And so there's a physical change that people deal with when they see me now. The mental change that they deal with is that when I left Steve Harvey, there was a fear of what is Rushion going to do now? Because everywhere I went personally, I was still managing Steve Harvey. Every phone call I made, everybody who talked to me, I was still getting emails. So I lived a life of 2 years after 2016 of telling people I don't manage Steve Harvey anymore. So I had to change the narrative of who I am by taking advantage of some strengths publicly, because social media is what people can brand you with. That's where the bragging comes. So
Mhm.
that's when the baking exploded on social media for me. And then I took the money making conversation concept and used that to develop my voice. And so the basis of who I am today is tied to me bragging on social media that I'm this amazing cook, an award winning cook, gaining followers, and then motivating people through my money making conversation platform based on the success. If you Google my name, as a recognized level of success is right there. Just Google me. And so now when people look at me now, they look at Steve Harvey, they look at myself, they look at what I'm doing with Stephen A. Smith, and it's all like, we understand, we get it. How can we do business with you?
What are you doing with Stephen A?
Stephen A., I'm a business manager. And 2018, Stephen A. came to me and asked me to manage his career. I told him I didn't want to manage anybody else in my life.
Mhm.
And he said, come on, Rushion, I'm putting together a top five. You got to be in that top five. I asked Stephen, Stephen, just one favor for me. Don't do politics. He said, okay. He said, you know, I love politics, Mac. I said, no, don't do politics. Let's focus on sports. So for 2018, he was with WME, his boy Shapiro, and he is now the number one talent financially and in sports analysts in the world. That's Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
And now I run his production company. Even though I run my own company, 3815 Media, I run his company as well. And it's not a partnership. I work for him. That's clearly the relationship that I have with him, and I'm comfortable with that because he's a good friend of mine, and it allows me to run my company, 3815 Media. And with my staff, I have 10 employees. And so now my goal with Stephen A. Smith is to build his brand, create shows. The COVID slowed us down a little bit, and he's fully recovered from now because he got it on December 16th. And so he's fully recovered now. So we took a month away from our dreams. He's writing his own book right now. He's about to launch a whole new a casual line of clothing that's going to be through Disney and ESPN. So we're heading in the direction of creating, like I like to tell him, mailbox money, making money while you sleep.
You are someone who continues to develop. One of the things that I wonder about is there are people who want to be out front,
Yes.
and there are people who don't want to be out front. And I know I'm creating what is essentially a binary conversation, but the the notion of success is often defined by many as being out front. Is that how
Yes.
you define success?
Well, I'm gonna tell you something about me. I'm very honest about my talents. I know how gifted I am, but I'm very honest in the relationships. So that if I had a relationship with you, or a relationship with Stephen A, a relationship with Steve, a relationship with Nick Cannon or Kevin Hart, it's an individual relationship. I don't try to cookie cutter the relationship. That's why I've been very successful in my life with people, because I don't try to say, well, this worked over here, I'm gonna try that trick move over here. And so when I look at how people approach the life principles, the life principles, and listen to me when I say that, is that you can win, Dr. Perry. You can, but you can't win if you don't trust your instincts. And I'm gonna just tell you this. In 1992, I was a very funny stand-up comedian. Did Def Comedy Jam on the tours, sold out clubs, and everything. And Steve Harvey came to town, and I hadn't saw Steve in a long time. In fact, Steve Harvey used to be my opening act, stand-up comedy wise. That's how far our relationship go back. And so we was at the Houston Arena Theater, sold out 3,000 people. I went on stage and I lit that stage on fire. I mean, I burnt that stage down with my jokes. People couldn't believe how funny I was. Steve was following me. As Steve went to the stage, they announced his name. He was getting a standing ovation before he even made it to the stage. I never saw that in my life. I went, how is that possible? How could they be standing for this dude and he ain't even told a joke? You do that after they perform. That's when you stand. And so he proceeded to do an hour routine of material that I wouldn't even have thought of doing. And that moment right there, I realized that I like doing stand up. He loves doing stand up. I have the ability to do stand up. God has given him the gift to do stand up. That moment right there, I knew in my life that I will never be as funny as that dude. So what do I want to do in my life? I realized that I wanted to be a writer, producer. Fast forward 1 year later, Steve Harvey came to me and said, Rushion, I got a TV show. ABC is offering me to do a TV show. What do you want to do? I said, I want to write. He said, wow, I didn't expect that from you. He said, I said, but see, I already made that decision a year before watching him, not knowing he was going to come back and ask me and tell me about a TV show and ask me to come on this TV show in 1993. But he did, and I was prepared to leave and go to LA and write on his first television show, and that ball has not stopped bouncing ever since.
I want to stay there for a moment. Many people are uncomfortable with acknowledging that there's something that they want to do,
Yes,
but that's not really where their talent lies.
yes,
And it's the humility that is required to do that impressed me when first I met you. When many a person would look at a person who is, let's say, telling jokes, being a comedian.
right.
I don't mean to belittle it, but a comedian. They
Right.
want to be a comedian. This person's a comedian.
Mhm.
This person comes in after them, torches the stage.
Mhm.
They say, you know what? I'm going to bust his ass next time. I'm going back in there.
Right.
A lot of people, most people, would find a way to tear the person down who came after them, who seemed to be given the gift that they wanted. You, I think, possess a skill that I believe more people need to tap into. And that is the comfort of saying, that's the guy. I'm the one who makes that happen. Much in the same way you just said a moment ago, I work for Stephen A.
Right.
A whole bunch of people, their egos get all twisted, and then people don't want them around because it's weird having somebody around who you like, dog. Like, can I be me and can you be you?
Right.
You know, I'm going to continue here because it reminds me of a relationship I had. You remember Brother Yusuf, the brother who is the reason why people know who I am. But he never wanted to be me. He never wanted to be on the road. He never wanted anybody to recognize him who he didn't already know. He didn't want that. And as a result, he and I never bumped heads on that matter. We were never rushing to the stage at the same time because he didn't want that. In fact, most times when I would get places, people would say, hey, is Yusuf coming with you? And I'd say, nah, he's not coming. Oh, we were so looking forward to meeting him. Yeah, that's just not going to happen unless you know where he lives. Because other than that. So I want you to talk, because I actually believe, Brother Sean, you have something that you can give people that I think that they could hear. And it's, to me, it's that notion that if you eat, we eat.
Right.
Like, I don't have to do what you do for both of us to succeed. Can you talk about that? Because it's a deep, deep skill that I think so many people miss out on. They think they got to be the number one. They don't understand that number twos are way harder to come by than number ones.
Well, you know, I know something. I never saw myself as a number two. I played a role, you know, my role in my lane. And I would tell you that as a stand-up comedian, as a person, I don't have enough money to tell you that how many people came to me and said, you're just as funny as Steve. You're funnier than Steve. Why aren't you doing with Steve? That ain't what I want to do. Because I'm gonna tell you something. It's about effort now. You know, it takes a lot of effort to be famous. It takes a lot of effort to build a brand in front of the camera. It's a lot easier for me to build a brand behind the camera. It's a lot easier for me to tell Stephen A, give him notes, or give Steve Harvey notes, or giving Kevin Hart's notes, or tell Will Packer, hey, let's change this, instead of being the person that people recognize as the person that's delivering the content.
I want you, because you again, there's so much. You and I spend honestly days talking about this, and there are things I got to pull out because you just gonna skip over them because you just go. But what people don't recognize, I want to talk about something because you know it, but other people don't. You just mentioned Will Packer. Most people wouldn't know who Will Packer is if you tapped him on the back, except for the fact that you know his work.
Yes.
And one of the things you know about Will Packer, if you're watching tonight, is there was this book that actually started off as a conversation on a Steve Harvey morning show about acting like a man and thinking like a lady.
Right.
Or no.
Acting like a lady, think like a man.
Thank you very much. And it's Steve Harvey, not Steve Perry, so I don't have to get it right. He did it really, really well.
Right.
But you saw how something could become something that began as a skit.
Right.
Talk about the genesis of the skit to the book.
Yes.
To the phenomena.
Yes.
To the movie.
Yeah, it's true. I do. It was so funny. I was actually at the Georgia State University with Mo Ivory at her law school class, talking about this very conversation because Steve has the legal life of Steve Harvey. And he asked me to come over there and talk about if you're going to do a legal life of Steve Harvey, Rushion got to talk. And so here's the thing: is that ever since I was 18 years old, I thought big. I really did. Everything that I'm doing now, I actually did in college. I mean, the events in Vegas, the neighborhood awards, I did those type of events in college.
Again, people don't know what the neighborhood awards was. There's 19,000 people in Vegas. Like, you say these things like yeah, but it was like 20,000 people.
I'm sorry, Dr. Steve. I'm sorry.
I mean, that was where I met Stevie Wonder. He didn't recognize me for obvious reasons, but it's like, oh yeah, that was where New Edition came back together. Like, so yes, you did.
Yes. So the fun part about our relationship we're about to talk about is the act like a lady, think like a man phenomenon. And it was based on the fact that we had a strawberry letter at 8:00, the prime strawberry letter. And the whole strawberry letter, which was national at the time, started in LA and nobody knew about it. Steve said, I was producing the Steve Harvey Morning Show in Los Angeles on 92.3 The Beat, the Los Angeles radio station owned by, at the time, by Radio 1, which is Alfred Liggins. And so he said, I want to do this, but nobody was responding to it. So I used to look at Dear Abby, look at Dear Ann Landers, and kind of like rewrite their letters and give it to him. And he didn't know that. Nobody in the show knew I was writing the letters to try to motivate people to understand this is how it worked. This is how you're supposed to do it. And then it caught on and we went national. It just blew up. But it was a relationship. And so Steve Harvey was this amazing comedian. But every day at 8:00, he was dealing with really, really complex relationships, stories out of this letter that he was brilliantly responding to all the time. Well, we took that over to HarperCollins, and they said we'll buy it. Gave us this big check.
HarperCollins is a publishing house.
They're like Simon Schuster, HarperCollins. They said we'll buy it, big old check. But then they told us, they said, we want you to do it speaking to black women. Steve Harvey said, Rushion, I'm not doing that. All women have the same relationship issues. He said, I'm tired of black people getting boxed in, like black people don't eat the same food or go on the same vacation. He said, I am not putting the word black in this book. Go tell them that. I said, he's not putting the word black in this book, but we will deliver it on time. And so when the book came out, they printed 35,000 copies. That's all.
Which is a lot, but just wait. That's a big run.
But we sold 3 million.
That's a lot more.
Translated into 30 languages. But how did we get there, Dr. Perry? My goal was to have Steve Harvey's book #1 4 straight weeks. I myself said if I kept it #1 for 4 straight weeks, Oprah will call us. The 4th week, Oprah called us. We went on the Oprah Winfrey show. Steve did. I'm in the back. Cool. Met Oprah, met everybody. That weekend, he sold 80,000 books. Oprah brought him back and did a show just with Steve, nothing but ladies in the audience, about his book. We sold 300,000 books that weekend. The
Folks, these numbers
train.
are not normal. Like I just want wait, we just can't jump into these numbers. I just want to pause for a second because
We
you
were
ain't gonna say
doing book
300,000.
signings, Dr.
You ain't gonna
Perry.
say 300,000 books, and we just gonna walk that off. That's true.
Dr. Perry, we were doing book signing, and 2,500 to 5,000 women were standing in line at the Barnes and Noble bookstore right across the street from Rich Carlton. You can go up because you can see it just like this. It's glass. And we looked out the window and all the way up the escalator because they stopped the escalator. And women were standing all the way up to the top floor and outside in the snow.
I want to go back though.
Mm-hmm.
This began as an answer to a question on radio.
Yes.
And there's a reason why I'm staying because you mentioned Will Packer. We're gonna get to that in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in what I say when I say second, I mean Scott Pippen is a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
In his own right.
Yes, he is.
But he won championships because he played with Michael Jordan,
Absolutely.
Steve Kerr,
Absolutely.
and the rest of them.
Absolutely.
Now, one could argue that Scott Pippen could at any point gone to another team and been successful there. And we see that now, right?
Yes.
We see a lot of these young cats, they're like, you know what? I'm going to go off and take my talent somewhere else.
Yes.
And they don't build a team around themselves.
Yes.
You has sense enough to say, you know what? I'm going to rock with what we got here.
Right.
I see a role for myself here.
Yes.
Where I can make my own role
Yes.
on the team. And there are a lot of people who I encounter and you encounter. People come to you and say, you know, Mr. McDonald, I'd love to work with you.
Right.
But that's not what they mean. They want to be you.
Yes.
And you don't need you. Like that job is taken.
Yes.
Period. There's no job opening for you.
Right.
In your company.
Mm-hmm.
And many people, young and old, but a lot of time young people come in and they don't want what they think they want is the front seat. But they ain't ready for the front seat.
Right.
Similarly, there are other people who don't see the profound impact that Cus D'Amato had on Michael Tyson.
Yes.
Right? Cus ain't hit nobody.
Mm-hmm.
He made sure Mike knew how to hit people.
Yes.
You have for a long time understood the value of the rest of the role.
Yes.
And that to me, I think, is something that separates you in the annals of entertainment and industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that. You take it's a compliment from that I'm giving.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that is a distinguishing factor. If I'm in a room, for instance, if I'm in a room with Steve Harvey, I'm not telling jokes. Like, I think I'm funny,
mm-hmm.
but I'm in a room with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's dumb. He's just, folks, he's funnier than you realize.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Period.
Yes.
Like,
he's a genius. He's a genius.
Literally funnier than you realize.
Yes.
You see him, whether we're sitting down, y'all smoke cigars, we barbecue meat. I mean, holding your side like, whoa, trying to catch your breath. So it's dumb to try and tell a joke when he's
mm-hmm.
telling a joke
mm-hmm.
because he's the greatest.
Right.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you to understand that, you know what, there are other things that I can do and be great too.
Right.
Like I could be great and he could be great.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that? Because we're going to come to the Will Packer piece in a moment, but because it's just amazing how these little things keep growing and getting bigger.
Right.
And I want to come back to the sales as well, but can you talk about how a person could see themselves differently and be successful, like really successful, if they just find their role on the team?
Right. And let me just bring clarity to this, because I do talk fast. I do pass a lot of things. Before I started managing Steve Harvey, I did the Robert Townsend show. I did Arsenio's show. I did the T and Tamara Mowry. I did Jamie Foxx show. I did the Parkers. And then I did the MTV Barbershop show. I did many other shows that were produced by me.
Sure.
In 2005, I told Steve, I said, I'm all in, brother. I said, I don't believe that we can get where we're going to get unless I go all in. He said, what does that mean? I said, I'm not gonna chase sitcoms. I'm not gonna try to produce anything else. I'm just gonna focus on what we can do together. And that decision right there changed our relationship and changed and focused me on the prize. And the prize was building a relationship through him with his talents, which I thought was so unique and were not being recognized by the industry. And so in 2005, we left LA and with no contract to seek a syndication opportunity with Clear Channel, which they gave us. And we started with 4 stations. Again, controlling the media. This is 2005. In 2009, the book came out, 3 million copies. Remember, he was still a Black comedian at that point. But in 2009, the book came out, 3 million copies, translated in 30 languages. We're talking about Russian. We're talking about Portuguese. We're talking about French. We're talking about all these different languages. And so, but they was being sold in San Diego, Seattle, because I'm watching all this, Boston, white markets, San Francisco. Okay, he's crossing over. Then in 2010, I did the deal for Family Feud. The ratings when we started were 1.7. Okay, that's all I'm doing now. I'm grinding to build a brand. That's all I'm focused on. Information on how I can make Steve Harvey better, because it's going to make my life better, because I enjoy this. Again, I'm telling people to do things that they enjoy. I'm enjoying my life. I am building something that should have been recognized a long time ago, but God gave me the shot at it to do it myself. I got to give 100%. So I'm all in. I'm not producing TV shows. I'm not telling jokes anymore. I'm focused on Steve Harvey, and I'm happy with it. And so 2010, Family Feud. Because of my marketing abilities, we took it from 1.7 to 2.4 the first season. The rest is history. Then Will Packer called. But here's the interesting thing about Will Packer in the movie Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. We got translated into Think Like a Man 1 and 2. When we was doing the radio show in New York City, Will Packer's first movie came out, and it was called Stump the Yard. I didn't know Will Packer from anybody. All I knew, it was a Black movie. I went to Steve Harvey, and I said, Steve, let's make this movie #1. He said, why? I said, it's a Black kid. He's from FAMU. Let's use all our strengths to make this movie #1.
Majored in engineering before he became
out of FAMU. His movie was #1 2 weekends in a row because of the Steve Harvey Morning Show. That's the same young Black kid who 5 years later offered us an opportunity through Screen Gems to do our movie, paid us a big check, and brought in a guy who nobody knew at the time called Kevin Hart to star in it. And we did over $200 million at the box office with a movie called Think Like a Man, Think Like a Man 2. Those 2 moments in both Steve Harvey's life and Kevin Hart's life and Will Packer's life changed the dynamics of Hollywood.
One of the reasons why your story is important to me is because there are a lot of people who saw themselves as the singer, who saw themselves as the actress, who saw themselves as the director, or the whatever the first seat was in the orchestra. And then there are those people who said, well, there are other seats.
Right.
So if I get to be at the table, one such seat might be to be the chef.
Yes.
Instead of simply being invited to dinner, I might be able to control what's on the menu. Talk about how you've been able to shift into the space that you're in now, which is you have a you mentioned that you have a network that you're starting. I want you to talk about that. You have your own show, which I want you to talk about that. and you're managing other folks and still building other businesses.
Yeah.
How was it that you went from being what we'll refer to loosely as in front of the camera to behind the camera in this way?
And now I'm back in front of the camera in some
Back
ways
in front of the camera.
because I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that. The
Mhm.
thing about it is that if I was still managing Steve Harvey, I would not be in front of the camera because that was his world, and I never wanted to act like I was competing for his shine. What I'm doing now, I'm just going to tell everybody, I am very happy with being Rushion McDonald. A lot of people are not happy with being themselves, and you can't reach it if you're not happy, and you can't compete with something that you can't achieve. Steve Harvey, I saw as the most phenomenal stand-up comic I'd ever seen in 1992. I couldn't compete. Stephen A. Smith is the most articulate sports mind I've ever seen in my life. And I've been told him that for years, and I feel blessed to be able to want to proudly say I'm his business manager. He says it publicly, as Steve said it when I was managing him. These are two people that I can't compete with. I cannot compete with Steve Harvey in comedy. I cannot compete with Stephen A. Smith when it comes to sports. I don't give a damn how much sports I know.
Right.
I don't care how funny I was on stage. Those two people checkmated me every time.
Precisely.
I was cool with that. I love your analogy or your comparison to a chef. I don't like sitting down. Never have liked sitting down. I like producing. I like giving instructions. I like seeing the final results. That's what I do. The problem that most people have is they listen to the noise. I never listen to the noise. I never listen to people telling me what they think I should do. I listen to what I feel I should do and what I want to do. You gotta stop listening to people who don't wake you up in the morning. God wakes me up. God wakes me up.
There's so many couples even who end up
Yes.
in that situation where because he's doing something, somebody's in her ear saying, well, if that's what he could do, you could do the same thing.
Yes.
I don't know why you don't. And they create a competition within the relationship
Yes.
because they find the weaker of the two and they're able to infiltrate that person's subconsciousness. The same is true of partnerships. Any kind of partnership. Somebody sees one person as successful in the most traditional sense, and they
Right.
say, I don't know why you're waiting on him. You can do the same thing. Like you mentioned earlier, somebody said, oh, you just funny as he is. Well,
Yes.
that's not true, and that's not necessary.
Right.
I'm good at what I do. He's good at what he does. And as long as I stay in my lane and that person stays in their lane, then in both cases, everybody wins. I knew I kept you long enough. Promised I would, and I appreciate you staying for a time.
I love it. I love it. Changing lives.
I know. We with the remaining 13 minutes we have, one of the things I want to talk about is I want to give you some time to fire off the 1,000+ projects you have going on. But I want you to talk really to people who are still, this is their New Year's resolution. They're trying to find out who they are on the team. Are they Scott Pippen? Are they Mike Jordan? Which one are they? So that they understand that we just have to win.
Yes. Yes.
You just got to win.
Yes.
So you just got to find your role on this team and get comfortable in it. Can you talk about that?
Well, I have a guide, and if anybody emails me, you can email me. I give you my email address. It's no big deal. Rushion, that's my first name, at 3815media.com. That's the name of my company. I have what I call a money making conversation success guide, and in it, it's digital, so I will email it to you. So when you email me, just ask for it. So Rushion, I heard you on Dr. Steve Perry's show. You're fantastic. You can throw that in there, and then I want that guide. It's 19 pages. And on one of the pages, it's called Steps to Grow Your Career. Okay. And the first thing you have to do in that, be honest about your talents. Be honest about your talents. The next thing is, if you're
don't jump over that, because that's pretty important.
Yeah.
That's the first thing and the last thing.
Yeah. Be honest about your talents. And I think if you've heard throughout this whole interview with me, I've been honest about my talents.
Yeah.
And that means if I'm going to be honest about my talents, I got to stop the noise and ignore it. I had to step out of my comfort zone, because what a noise is your comfort zone. When you step out of the noise, you actually start hearing it because they're going to complain because they're not controlling your narrative anymore. You're doing things that make them uncomfortable. So what happens? You have to let go of the mistakes. Those people who are noise, people who are complaining, they are mistakes. Let them go. And when you let them go, you're going to find yourself alone. So you have to find experts, people who to mentor you, people to advise you. Don't if you're a doctor, don't go to a mechanic. That might be your cousin, your father, your uncle, or your mom or your aunt. Go to experts that can help you. So I had to stop hearing the noise. I couldn't hang out with my friends anymore because they just wanted to be part of this success story. Which the success story was changing. And you know something, Dr. Perry? I had a rule. If people would call me and ask me what I was doing, I didn't talk to them. If you call me and tell me what you were doing, we could have a conversation. I am not in life to entertain you. So what I'm doing, it should be a little concerned with you. If you're calling me,
Right.
please call me and tell me why you want to talk to me because my time is value. That's the key right there. Value your time. And then while you valuing your time, preparation is the key. And when you walking through the steps of preparation, if you look through my life, when I did all those sitcoms, when I was preparing myself for a career with Steve Harvey that I didn't know. When I did this, so when people came to me, Dr. Perry, my resume was already there. Nobody questioned me. Nobody said, "Oh, you Steve Harvey's boy." No, his whole resume had nothing to do with Steve Harvey. So when I talked about production, I talked about sitcoms. My resume allowed me to have to stay in the room with agents, with studio heads, everybody. Because when they first saw me, they saw me as his boy. But when they did their research, they always called me the next day and said, "We need to talk." Because this conversation wasn't going to just be with Steve, it was going to be with me. So that's the part where you have to continue to learn about who you are once you figure out your talents.
I think it's a great point. So, what are some of the projects you're working on now? So I have to ask you that. I know you won't talk to me because I'm asking you, not telling you, but
Well,
that's why we're here.
I would tell you one of the last couple of years, one of the biggest projects I worked on was I was a CMO for the Air National Guard. One is a huge contract, government contract, where I was in charge with the marketing and branding. A black man was in charge with the marketing and branding, all 50 states, 4 countries, of how the military, which is the Air National Guard, looked in movie theaters, on TV, sounded on radio, social media, and everything. And they were dark for 2 years before I took over the contract. Within 1 year, I had elevated their recruiting percentage to 106%.
Mm.
That is one of the prouder moments for me because it wasn't about me being black. It was about taking some talents that I had built in relationships with all the things I've done on my life to up it. So now I do HBCU events. It's called HBCU College Day. So what I've learned is that I have to create things that are unique. I have an HBCU radio network. You can hear me on Texas Southern campus, Bethune-Cookman campus, FAMU's campus, Howard University campus, Clark Atlanta University, just Jackson State, Mississippi Valley State, just to let you know how big my brand is. HBCU Money Making Conversations Masterclass can be heard on those properties. I'm also launching my own podcast network that will be launched in the month of April. And I'm just making a dynamic shift in my life just to control the narrative of Black excellence. I'm producing TV shows. I am launching so many things. My show is streaming on HBCU Go Network. So my brand right now is where I want it to be. Yes, I'm the face of my brand. And I remember I told some friends of mine, I said, I have to start working. And they said, "What do you mean? You always busy?" I said, "No, no, no." I said, "I know who I represented and I know how hard they had to work." I said, "I'm about to start working, which means I'm going to be uncomfortable, which means I'm not going to be happy all the time because of the fact that when you are chasing your dreams, you're not going to be comfortable. You're going to be tired." I mean, one day, Dr. Perry, I was going to the airport. My wife was carrying me after like 4 o'clock in the morning. And she asked me this question. She said, "Rushion, when aren't you not tired?" I said, "Babe, I'm tired right now." And she didn't ask me nothing else.
You make a point. We're gonna close there because I think that that's really the point. The point is that you knew your talent,
Mm-hmm.
and you knew you had to work beyond being tired.
Mm-hmm.
It is easy for people to see the fruits of your labor and not understand what it took to dig a hole, to plant the tree, to wait for the seed to germinate, to fertilize it until it grew, to be able to produce the fruit that you have produced. They did not understand what it is that you do and what is it still you will do.
Mm-hmm.
It is always a pleasure, brother, to speak to you. I genuinely appreciate the time that we have. Thank you so much for joining me this evening on No Dumb Questions. As always, brother, I learned a lot. You didn't share any recipes with me, but that'll have to be for the next time. But I do. I can't bake. I can beat up some meat, but I cannot bake. I don't even know what it is. Maybe it's the science in it. I can cook, but I can't bake. But I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Love you to pieces, man.
Okay. Again, just in the end, email Rushion at 3815 Media if you want that free money making conversation guide to success, and I email it to you immediately tomorrow morning. Thank you, sir.
So much. Folks, I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening on No Dumb Questions. You could have been anywhere, but you were here with us tonight. It's so important that we understand our worth. But one of the ways that we understand our worth is to know our talents. It is all too easy to get yourself bent out of shape, trying to fit into something that doesn't fit you. Everything that is for isn't for you. It is as important to know what it is that you do well as it is to know what you don't do well. And those people who have the courage to be honest with themselves about their own contributions to the world at large, to the economy, to their family, are typically the ones who are the happiest with what it is that they contribute. Those people who find themselves trying to make sense out of nonsense and trying to fit into a set of circumstances that just don't feel right tend to not feel right. What Brother Rushion talked about tonight was his role on a team and his role on a very, very good team. Steve Harvey is as talented an individual as there is, and as capable an individual as there is. And what Rushion contributed made it possible for both of them to eat for quite some time. I want you to keep in mind the following, that the smartest person in the room is not the one with all the answers. It is the one with the best questions. So keep in mind that you must know what the dumb questions are, because there are no dumb questions. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you next week on No Dumb Questions. Y'all take it easy.